I still remember the exact moment it happened. I was sitting on that worn-out couch, half drained from a long day, scrolling aimlessly through my phone when she walked in. She had that look, like the world was hers to conquer, and somehow, she did it effortlessly. The kind of presence that makes everything else fade into the background. And then she did it. She laughed. Not just any laugh. That laugh that makes your chest tighten, your stomach flutter, and suddenly, the day's exhaustion vanishes. It was soft at first, almost shy, like she didn't even realize how infectious it was. But then it bubbled into something bigger, something that made me freeze mid-thought. I found myself smiling, out of reflex, and I swear, I couldn't stop staring. "Stop making me laugh," she said suddenly, trying to hide the grin tugging at her lips. But she failed miserably. Her eyes were sparkling, betraying the tiny battle she was trying to fight against herself. And in that moment, I did the only thing I could think of. "Then stop being so adorable," I replied, without thinking, like my words had a mind of their own. She froze. For a heartbeat, the room felt smaller, like the air itself had thickened. And then, of course, she laughed again, louder this time, a sound so warm and alive that I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. But this time, her laughter carried something else, too. Something curious. Something I couldn't quite place, like a warning disguised as amusement. I don't know why, but something about that moment set off an alarm in me. Not the kind that makes you worry for yourself, but the kind that makes you pay attention. Something was coming, I just didn't know what. We spent the rest of the evening talking, and somehow, every word she said carried that same magnetic pull, that same spark that made me both nervous and completely enthralled. I wanted to get closer, to understand her better, to be around her forever, but I could feel the tension lingering, like a thread stretched too thin, ready to snap. And I knew, deep down, that laughing together now was just the calm before something far more complicated. It wasn't just that she was adorable, or that her laugh made me feel things I couldn't name. It was that behind those sparkling eyes, behind that effortless charm, there was a side of her I hadn't seen yet. Something unspoken, something that could change everything between us. And I had a feeling I wasn't ready for it. Because in the next moment, she leaned closer, her face only inches from mine, and whispered something so quiet that I almost didn't hear it, but it stopped my heart all the same. She said, "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." And just like that, I realized this wasn't going to be simple. Not even close. Her name was Emily, though everyone seemed to call her by nicknames I couldn't keep track of. Half of them she didn't even like. I'd met her a few weeks ago at a small coffee shop downtown, the kind with creaky chairs and the smell of burnt espresso that somehow felt comforting. I was sitting alone, trying to finish a report for work I didn't really care about, when she tripped over her own shoelaces and spilled her coffee all over the floor. Most people would have panicked or apologized frantically. Not Emily. She laughed, shrugged, and somehow made the mess look intentional. That first encounter should have been nothing, just a spilled coffee and a brief apology. But there was something in the way she carried herself, a lightness, a kind of effortless charm that made you forget everything else. I found myself drawn to her from the start, and by some stroke of luck, she remembered my name the next time we met. We started seeing each other more often, slowly at first. A quick coffee here, a shared umbrella in the rain there. She had this way of noticing the tiniest details, like how I always ordered the same sandwich at lunch, or that I preferred the window seat in quiet cafes. She remembered everything, and somehow, it made me feel like I mattered more than I ever had before. But it wasn't just her charm. Emily had this spark that kept you guessing. Sometimes she was open and warm, the kind of person you could talk to for hours without realizing time had passed. Other times, she was distant, almost mysterious, like there were parts of her locked away, even from me. And I couldn't tell if that was what made her fascinating or what made her dangerous. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the easy parts, the laughter, the stolen moments, the way she'd reach for my hand, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. But that flicker of something hidden was always there. Something she didn't, or wouldn't, share. And I couldn't help wondering what it was. Her friends told me she was complicated, though none of them ever said it directly. It was in the way they laughed nervously when her name came up, in the way they exchanged glances that seemed to say, "You'll see." I tried not to think about it, tried to convince myself that her quirks were just part of her charm. But the more time I spent with her, the more I realized that just part of her charm, might be hiding something bigger, something I wasn't prepared to face. That evening on the couch, the one with the laughter and the teasing, I felt it more than ever. The tension between us wasn't just attraction. It was something sharper, like a quiet warning wrapped in a smile. And when she whispered that line, "You don't know what you're getting yourself into," it settled into my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I didn't understand it then. I didn't know if she was joking or serious. But something in her eyes told me that what was coming wouldn't be simple. And deep down, I knew I was already tangled in it, whether I wanted to be or not. The next few days were strange. Emily was the same person I'd fallen for, laughing and teasing like nothing had changed. But there were these sudden shifts, these moments where her eyes would darken and she'd retreat into herself. I didn't know what triggered them, and I was too afraid to ask. Every time I tried, she'd brush it off with a joke, a shrug, a smile that made me forget why I even wanted answers in the first place. One evening, we were walking along the river, the city lights reflecting in the water like tiny stars. I tried to bring up the tension, the fleeting shadows in her expression. "You've been distant lately," I said, careful with my words. She stopped, looked at me, and for a second, the playful Emily vanished. "I'm fine," she said softly, almost too softly, her voice barely above the sound of the water. But her hands were trembling, and the way she avoided my gaze made me uneasy. I didn't press. I shouldn't have. But later, I found myself replaying every laugh, every glance, every whisper. There were moments I thought I understood her, and then something would happen to remind me that I didn't. That maybe I never would. And that's when the oddest thing happened. Small things at first. Messages left unanswered, plans canceled at the last minute, subtle hints that she was somewhere else entirely, somewhere I wasn't invited to follow. I tried to give her space, tried to trust her, but the knot in my stomach only grew tighter. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something, something big. Then came the night she invited me over to her apartment. I thought it was going to be normal. Dinner, a movie, maybe more laughter, but from the moment I stepped inside, the air felt different. Heavy, electric. There was a tension I couldn't name, and every smile she gave me seemed rehearsed, too deliberate, as if she was holding back a secret she wasn't ready to tell. I wanted to ask her, to break through whatever invisible wall she'd built, but before I could speak, she leaned in close, her lips brushing mine for just a second, and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "You shouldn't be here," she said. And in that single sentence, everything I thought I knew about her, and about us, shattered. I didn't know if she meant it as a warning or a threat, but one thing was clear. Whatever this was, it was only just beginning. I left her apartment that night with my mind spinning and my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. Her words, "You shouldn't be here," echoed in my head over and over, each repetition twisting my stomach tighter. I kept asking myself, did she mean me personally, or was it something bigger? Something I wasn't supposed to know? The next day, I tried to act normal, but everything reminded me of her. The way the sun hit the corner of a cafe window, the sound of laughter in the streets, even the way my phone buzzed with messages that weren't from her. And I couldn't help but notice how her behavior had changed subtly. She was warmer in public, laughing like nothing had happened, but every private interaction was charged with a tension I couldn't ignore. It was like walking on the edge of a cliff. You could enjoy the view, but one wrong step and everything would fall apart. I decided to confront it. I needed to know what she was hiding, even if I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. That evening, I went back to her apartment, trying to prepare myself for whatever truth might come out. I knocked, and she opened the door, eyes wide, an unreadable expression on her face. "Hey," I said cautiously. "We need to talk." She didn't move, didn't speak, just let me in. And then, slowly, she closed the door behind me. The apartment felt different tonight. The air was heavier, almost charged, like something was waiting to happen. I noticed little things I hadn't before. A faint smell of something metallic, a stack of papers I hadn't seen, the way shadows pooled unnaturally in the corners. "I can't explain everything," she said quietly, leading me to the couch. "Not yet, but you need to understand, you're in danger." The words hit me like a punch. Danger? Me? I wanted to laugh it off, to tell her she was overreacting, but the look in her eyes stopped me. There was fear there, raw and unfiltered, and it wasn't for her. It was for me. I wanted to ask questions, to demand answers, But before I could, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "You need to see this," she said. Her hands trembled as she handed it over. My curiosity battled with the fear in my chest. Slowly, I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, and my blood ran cold. It was me. But not just me in any ordinary situation. Me in moments I didn't remember, in places I hadn't been. Watching, following. And at the bottom of the photo, in small, neat handwriting, were the words, "I warned you." I looked up at her, heart hammering, mind screaming questions I couldn't voice. She leaned back, her eyes never leaving mine, and whispered, almost too softly to hear, "You still don't get it, do you?" And in that instant, I realized everything I thought I knew about her, about us, about this entire world, might be a lie. I stared at the photograph, my hands trembling, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Every instinct screamed that something was horribly wrong, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And then she did something I never expected. "Look closer," Emily said, her voice barely audible, almost a whisper, but sharp enough to cut through the panic twisting inside me. I leaned in, squinting at the photo. That's when I noticed it. Behind me in the background of every picture, almost hidden, almost impossible to see, was someone else. Watching, always watching. I froze. My stomach turned over. The figure wasn't blurry, not like a shadow. It was clear, intentional, and familiar. My own reflection in someone else's eyes. Someone who knew every move I made, every step I took, every word I said to her. Before I could speak, she grabbed my arm. "They're coming. And this isn't just about us. It's bigger than you think. You're not safe. Not anywhere." Her eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I felt fear. Not the playful, thrilling kind she could inspire, but a deep, paralyzing terror that made my chest tighten. And just like that, the world I thought I understood shattered completely. The night air was thick as we ran through the narrow streets, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might burst. Emily's hand gripped mine tightly, her thumb pressing into my skin like an anchor in the chaos. Behind us, the faint hum of footsteps echoed off the brick walls, slow at first, then faster, sharper, like someone matching our rhythm, anticipating our every move. "Where are we going?" I gasped, barely keeping up. "You'll see," she replied, eyes wide, scanning the shadows. "But we don't have much time." We ducked into an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the district. The place smelled of rust and dust, but it offered the only cover. Inside, Emily shoved me behind a stack of crates, her face pale but determined. "They've been watching you for weeks," she whispered, her voice shaking. I tried to stop it, but she trailed off, staring at the far corner of the room. My eyes followed hers and froze. Figures emerged from the darkness, faceless silhouettes moving with eerie precision. The same figure from the photos stood at the center, the one that had haunted every frame of my life. And then, impossibly, it spoke. "You've seen too much," it said, voice eerily familiar. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just a stranger. It was me. Or at least, someone who looked exactly like me. Emily stepped in front of me, fists clenched. "You won't touch him," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. The figure advanced, slow, deliberate. I wanted to run, to scream, but I was rooted to the spot. And then Emily did something I didn't expect. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small device, pressing a button that sent a pulse of light across the room. The figures staggered, their movements jerky, unnatural, like they were puppets cut from their strings. "You were never alone," Emily said, her eyes meeting mine. "They created you, but I'm not letting them win." The silhouettes dissolved into shadows, and the eerie hum vanished. My chest heaved, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. For a moment, relief washed over me. But then Emily leaned close, her voice barely a whisper, and said the words that made my stomach drop. "They're not gone. They never leave. And one day they'll come back. You have to be ready." The morning light spilled through the broken windows of the warehouse, soft and almost forgiving, as if the world outside had no idea of the chaos we'd survived. I sat on the cold floor, still trembling, staring at the spot where the shadows had vanished. Emily knelt beside me, her hand brushing mine, grounding me in a reality that still felt fragile. "I don't understand," I whispered. How did you know? How did you stop them?" She gave me a small, tired smile, the one that could make your chest ache with something between relief and longing. I've been preparing for this for a long time. I've seen what they do, what they're capable of. And when I saw you, I knew I couldn't let them take you too. Her words made sense in the moment, but the questions lingered, heavier than ever. Who, or what, had created those figures? Why me? And why had she been the only one who could fight them? Emily didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pulled me to my feet and led me outside. The city was quiet now, as if holding its breath, giving us a moment to exist without fear. I glanced at her, really looked at her. The laughter, the teasing, the warmth that had drawn me in from the beginning. All of it felt different now, layered with the knowledge of what we'd survived together. Whatever happens next, she said softly, we face it together. They may come back, but we're stronger than they think. You and I, we're not just players in their game. We're the ones writing the rules. I wanted to believe her, and somehow I did. The fear was still there, lingering in the corners of my mind, but it no longer ruled me. We had each other, and that mattered more than any shadowy figure or twisted reflection. As we walked away from the warehouse, the city waking around us, I realized something important. Life was unpredictable, terrifying, and sometimes cruel. But it was also filled with moments like this, moments of connection, of trust, of laughter that could pierce through fear. Moments where being alive, being human, felt like a victory in itself. I glanced at Emily, and she caught my gaze, smiling in that way that made everything feel lighter. Stop being so adorable, I teased, echoing the words that had started it all, and she laughed. A genuine, full laugh this time, free of shadows. Maybe I can't help it, she replied, leaning close, but I'm glad you stuck around to see it. And in that moment, I understood. Life would throw its shadows, its twists, its mysteries at us endlessly. But sometimes, the bravest thing you could do was simply keep walking forward, hand in hand with someone who mattered, trusting that together you could face whatever came next. Because in the end, it wasn't about the shadows behind us or the dangers ahead. It was about the light we carried between us, and the choice to keep it burning, no matter what.